We are joined now by author, presidential historian, and political analyst Rich Rubino. Rich, always great to have you on the program. I want to dive right in with this shakeup at the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We have this jobs report revision, much larger than normal, missing the mark by hundreds of thousands of jobs. Now, the president says he fired the head of labor stats because he doesn't believe the revision was accurate. He suggests this was politically motivated. This was a major discrepancy. And because you are a historian, I wanted to ask you, how many times have we seen corrections this major? And also, what might lead to projections being this far off?
Well, it does happen often, and I think that Donald Trump wants to make the argument. He wants to be able to go to the American people in his speeches and say, look what's happened to the economy. We've stimulated the economy. It's better than under Joe Biden. The fact that the job growth was anemic and not as big as he expected, I think that that's the reason why he's basically taking it out on what theoretically should be the job of a neutral arbiter, if you will, kind of like the referee or the umpire. But obviously, the referee umpire was somebody who was originally nominated by President Joe Biden in 2024. Someone who I think Trump sees as a Biden loyalist. But that being said, she was also confirmed by the United States Senate with only 6 dissenting votes. So the United States Senate pretty much confirmed her, and it was a very non-controversial appointment at the time.
Yeah, there's been so much talk about just that hundreds of thousands of jobs that we know there are discrepancies frequently. Just the significance of this report seems a bit eye-opening. We'll continue to, of course, follow the updates and see who's replaced as well. I appreciate that perspective, Rich. You know, the president, he's been touting his moves economically as a success, saying we have no inflation, nothing but cash coming in from the tariffs. This week, NewsNation's Leland Vittert, he highlighted some new polling, and it shows that 53% of Americans report feeling behind financially, 50% unable to save money, 79% seeing higher grocery store costs. How do you believe the president's messaging is playing when you do consider there are a number of folks feeling the pinch right now?
Well, so far his messages has failed, just very similar to Joe Biden. Joe Biden would try to say that more jobs are being created, that there was that the economy was being stimulated, but what the American people saw was inflation. It goes back to George H.W. Bush in 1992. The economy actually was growing, was out of recession on the time of the election of 1992, but the American people are not feeling it. Consequently, Bill Clinton landed up winning. I think right now you're seeing a very similar scenario. I think that the rhetoric of the president does not match what the American people are feeling, and that's what we're going to see in the midterm elections. It's not so much it's not necessarily what the president's rhetoric is. It's not necessarily what the economy actually is at that particular point in time. It's more or less how the American people are feeling, and do they feel that they are better off than they were 2 years ago or that they were 4 years ago. And just like with Joe Biden at the end of his term, just like with George H.W. Bush in 1992, I think that right now the answer is no.
And he knows that this deadline is coming up, these midterms, obviously in sharp focus. Yes. We'll see how these trade discussions continue. Rich Rubino, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.